masculinity toxic. But there's still some men out there doing manly things. I think of men who are involved in sword play, fighting to the death, the coup d'etat, the final touch, touche. I see men who are in wars and battles. I see men creating companies from scratch and turning them into multi-billion-dollar oligarchies designed not just to provide products to the world, but heck, while I'm here, might as well rule the world, right, Bill? Okay. But today I find myself doing a manly thing. I don't normally brag about my powers, my majesty, my testosterone, but yeah. Over the weekend, I didn't just go perform any old where. No, it's July. So I went to Tucson, Arizona. You heard me. I went to Tucson in July. Now, if you can top that for manliness, bring it on. Meanwhile, this is Brad Stine, otherwise known as the manly name God's Comic. My son Wyatt's at the helm. The buttons are ready to be pushed and to be short-circuited. But the happiest day of your life is if this is your first time watching Brad Stine Has Issues. As a matter of fact, if it is your first time, I wrote a song just for you. Goes like this. Well, hello, folks. It's me, God's Comic Brad Stine, and this is Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of calamity. Normally, I wouldn't bring my son into this right off the bat because he's coughing or doing something without any awareness of where it's going, but I'm going to jump him in because he's my boy, and he exuded from my loins. Wyatt, how are you, son? It's Monday. You couldn't be happier, and you weren't in Tucson in July.
You know, I think that might be a record for fastest loin joke of a podcast.
Oh, but I would say this. Loins are masculine. Loins are powerful. Loins are a creation of humanity.
I get that. I'm just saying that's probably not a record people want to have. It's like, sure, you could probably get the world record for most fire ants eaten, but do you want that record?
I will say this. If I had the world record for eating the most fire ants, I think that'd be kind of cool. I think that would put you in a very, very unique category, son.
Yes,
and perhaps you underestimate the exotic insect-eating academy that's probably out there. Maybe they do it on the dark web. Who am I to judge? Maybe they do it on the bug web. Maybe they do it in the spider's web.
I'm assuming dark web is a term you heard about maybe 30 minutes ago and then decided, hey, that's a cool popular term with the kids these days.
I thought if I threw it out there, it might throw you for a loop, son.
Well, how did that work out for you?
I don't know. I haven't heard yet. You heard about the dark web?
I've heard about it, but I'm kind of in the dark about it.
Okay. Never explored the web?
I've explored the web. That's just not the dark web.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you can't see anything in there.
No, and then if you got webs in your face in the dark, that's really creepy. Because webs are creepy enough, but in the dark, ha-ha! Yeah! It's like a specter grabbing your face with a hand, a light, silky hand. What is it about that? Why, when people are, even as adults, you're by yourself in the house, lights are off, you go to turn on a light, can't find the switch, and for some reason you know that there's a floating, disembodied hand just about to grab your neck. Now, you would think that as an adult we would have moved beyond that, but yet we continue to fear the most obscure and clearly ludicrous concept. If a hand was severed, it would probably be the least frightening hand because it can't harm you. Son, what is it about severed floating hands that frighten you?
Well, if you had to ask me, I think it all stems down to humans' innate natural instinct that floating severed hands generally are a bad thing. I mean, how many of you citizens floating head and burning. That's what I need. That's what I need.
No, but I'm just saying that. We know it's not real. We know
How
that.
do you know it's not real? Have you ever not seen a floating severed hand before?
I don't even know what that meant. Have I ever not? I've not. Yes.
I don't know. I was trying to like provoke like psychology.
That was confusing. I knew where you were going with it, and I was curious to see if you would get there, and you failed miserably, son.
Technically, I did get there. I just confused you along the way.
You know, speaking of confusion, folks, I don't know if you know this, but if you're brand new to Brad Stine Has Issues, this is the greatest day of your life. But if you're an old regular, you know it's mundane, it's ridiculous. You're just hanging on because of sympathy for me and my patheticism. But here's what's interesting. If you've noticed, my little iPad's not here. It will come soon. But I have my own little Brad Stine Has Issues. It's the name of my little Facebook, YouTube, Spotify podcast. And I do it on Facebook Live. I've done it for 3 years, ever since the cult of Corona. And I've always been able to say hi to folks. That's part of the fun. You know, people show up. I'm shocked that somebody wants to listen to me. But when they do, I'm here for the gregarious exuding of the nomenclature and the idioms that allow you to follow along on a Monday night, or you're simply have overdosed on sleeping pills. But whatever it is that kept you at the screen, I would get a notification. Now, you would think that of all the people that would get a notification, it'd be people that want to be notified. And when they say, I'd like to be notified to be seen on a particular podcast or a page, or somebody's interacting, because that's kind of the fun. If you happen to be somebody like me in the performance arts, people like what you do. Some do, some don't. But the people that like what you do say, hey, let me know when he's around. I'd love to see what this guy's all about. So you would think, since it's my podcast and it's my Facebook page, my fan page, and it's got, fair amount of folks that are on it, you'd think that of all the people that you would assume at least would get a notification, it'd be me, because it's mine. Well, I don't get them anymore. Now, I don't need to notify myself that I'm going to do my show at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard, because I know I'm going to do it. But when it comes on here, I could click on it, and then I can see everybody saying hi and what's going on, and I have my little jokes with my old fans that show up every time. And suddenly, they're not there. So Wyatt has to literally go find my page and put it on so I can find my own page that I'm doing live right now, and I can't find it without my son putting it in there because they're not notifying us. So, folks, would you say that is another proof that the United States is being taken over by leftists who are so despicable they won't even allow people on their own live broadcasts to know that they're broadcasting live? That, my friends, is taking a whole new low. Wouldn't you say, son?
I would say so, yeah. So I think I got it back up, I think.
Okay.
So I'm going to hand it over to you, but
yeah.
In the meantime, while I'm doing the handover, I would like to play a little game with you called Guess the Top 3 People who commented.
As you're walking here?
As I'm walking here.
Okay. Or in this case, crawling on your belly.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever maintains the illusion.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm going to guess, and I'm going to throw this out. Now, again, I don't know. How would I know, son? I'm not a mind reader. I'm not Kreskin. I'm not a Rick Geller. I'm not Dunninger. I'm not Darren Brown. I'm not any of these guys that allege to be, able to prognosticate things that are happening. But so I'm just going to throw this out. And again, how would I know? I barely remember people that are on the show. I'm going to throw out, just for that, but I don't know, Saint Nick, or what I like to say, Nick Crest. I'm going to just for the heck of it, pick up the spare by saying Karen Boyd. I'm going to say Paula Faye Marie Rauchi.
All right. You want to know how you did?
How did I did?
Well, if this was a classroom... If this was a classroom test, you would have failed.
Why?
2 out of 3.
Carrie Tudor and Nick Crest are watching. Yeah, go ahead.
Yours is a bit off because it's a bit slow.
Okay, say it.
Top 3 were
Yeah,
Nick Crest.
of course.
Force Bainey.
Oh, Forrest is here.
And Karen Boyd.
And it's Karen. I don't know how many times I have to tell you that, son. It's only been 2.5 years.
More than you've already done.
Beth Franklin says, hello, gentlemen. How does she know we're a gentleman? Why? We could be cads. Hey, that'd be a great name for a band. We could be cads.
Yeah, let's never do that though.
Okay. Gianna Sizemore. Hi, Brad. Hi, Gianna. Benjamin, are you here? Saith Karen. Rebecca Daly Dwyer. Hello from Bellavant, Pennsylvania. Hello to Wyatt also. You know, she always says the exact same thing with the exact same icons. Always tells us she's from Bellavant, Pennsylvania. And maybe it's Belafonte. I just say Belafont. And then she says, hello to Wyatt also. And then she has a unicorn, a purple heart, a pierced heart, and a contemplating face that's oval. Lori Weens, bride Steinheld from Lewisburg, Tennessee. Faith Peter, no idea. That must be a new person. Are they real or are they a bot? Time will tell. Hey, listen, Nick Kress said no pork loin, but pork shoulder on the smoker last week. And see how he is? He eats, and he pork loins and smokes. He offers none to us. He doesn't jerk any. He doesn't send us any overnight so we can literally chomp on it and say, Nick, thank you. God bless you, St. Nick. No, he doesn't do anything like that, son. What he's begun to do is he's taken us for granted, Wyatt, and it's bothering me. And I shouldn't say it live, but I'm figuring, you know, you got to call out the truth. How else am I going to inspire my people to be warriors if we can't call out St. Nick for not sending us free meat? Forrest Bainey, son, what's the best name in the world?
Forrest Bainey.
Yeah. I was stationed at Davis Mountain Air Force from 86 to 91. Good for you. Let's see. We got her. Galvin Burrell. Gianna Sizemore. I didn't get her. Oh, she's working on a quilt. And it sounds bad. Getting a massive feedback, Sean Syriac.
Yeah, that's what annoys me is because sometimes the audience will all say there's an audio feedback or there's a sound issue, and I'm listening to the podcast, like in my headphones and on live on my phone.
Yeah.
And I never hear what they're talking about. So it's like, what do I fix? What's broken?
Well, she said that his mic is having huge static and feedback. Is that mine?
I know for a fact that when my microphone is turned on, it does a bit of that, but I always keep mine off unless I'm talking.
Okay. Well, listen, I don't see it. It seems like it kind of faded away, and then they started talking, so maybe it went away because I don't. Yeah, Colin just said it's better now.
But like even when I'm listening to it now with me talking, I don't hear any static.
I don't either.
Is my phone broken?
Do you know what St. Nick said?
Broken?
Do you know what Nick said? He said it sounds like an audio compression issue. No, it says issy. It clearly says ISSIE. Son, he is a professional. An issy is a deeper form of issue. It's like the bottom of an issue. If you have an issue and it's worse, it's an issy. You didn't know that?
I think you're misinterpreting it. I think he just meant to say issue, but he said that instead. Which makes total sense because you are a professional who still uses the word loins.
I use it well. I don't smoke them, though.
I mean, why can't you go with the hip term kids are using now and just say nods?
Oh, that's old. Hey, Air Force Base.
Like it's any worse than loins.
No. That's true. Forrest Bainey said he was at the Air Force Base in Tucson. Let's see. Oh, here's what Diana Neal says. Do a Stephen King move, and when someone is reaching into the darkroom trying to find the light switch, gently grab their hand and place it on the switch. Wyatt. Where is that? Where is that? Where is that? Where is that? Where? Huh? Oh, that would be creepy.
So there was a comment by Sean Syriac who says if he gets a deal this year, he'll send us some jerky. And
nice.
Oh boy, deal jerky. Hey, wasn't there something that somebody said they were going to send us?
Oh yeah, they were going to send us something.
What was that?
There was something from like we were going to eat it live, Wyatt.
Yeah, what happened?
We were going to eat it live. Wasn't it somebody from like Africa or some crazy?
Something like that. Whatever happened to that?
You know what? They bailed. We were sitting here waiting. I remember many nights you would sit when you had your little onesie on, and you'd sit by the front porch. And it was midnight, but you'd sit there cuddled and curled and hope, just hope. Maybe today's the day. Daddy, is today the day? And I'd say, I don't know, son. I'm a man of my word, but I can't speak for the person who is going to. Oh, it was from like Switzerland or something.
Yeah, it was. Well, all I know.
It was like reindeer brain or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Crazy!
I'm just saying that because I haven't eaten a single thing all day.
Yeah.
Because I was just hoping beyond hope today would be the day.
I know.
We'd finally get... No, I'm not kidding, though. The only thing I've had to eat today is a bag of pretzels.
Really?
Yeah. I kind of forgot to eat, which... Try figuring out how that happens, but
I know.
yeah.
Hey!
What?
You're not gonna believe who showed up.
Who showed up?
Don't say it out loud. She's in jeopardy.
The Canadian.
Yes. The Canadian.
The Canadian whose name I completely remember.
Daddy Harriet is here, folks. She said, hello, Brett and White. I've missed you guys. If you are new to the broadcast, she is hiding in a bunker in Canada, trying to escape from Trudeau's wrath. So she showed up, but she won't be here long. She's got a lot of digging to do. She's trying to tunnel herself into Detroit. So I'm just letting you know, don't speak her name loudly. Only speak it on the inward breath. Daddy Harriet.
Why
Daddy Harriet.
Why Detroit? That's sort of like a lateral move at best.
Well, it gets you out of Canada. That's how bad things are, son.
Yeah,
if you're in
but
Canada, Detroit is utopia.
It gets you out of Canada, yeah, but at what cost? Going to Detroit.
Hey, Everett Hornbustle said, did you get to enjoy any of the buffalo jerky we hooked Brad up with while in South Dakota? Do you remember when I gave you some of
Yeah, did you?
Yes.
That? Did you?
It was delicious.
Oh, really? And I had some of that?
Hey.
I received some of that as payment for my hard work and
You
service
did.
to the podcast.
Good. Look who's here, my favorite four-named lady. What's her name, son?
Hall of Fame, Marie Ralph.
That's it. Hey, Julie Antoinette Binion's here. I don't even know if she's ever been here before. Let me think. David Pennington. David, welcome. Douglas Kroll. First Doug again. How are you two doing? First Doug again? It's Doug again. I don't know.
Okay, hold on. I just got a comment from Diane Neal.
What'd she say?
Our Baptist church bus driver would swallow a live goldfish for every child who made it to Sunday school or church for so many weeks in a row. Is that a good thing? Is that like something you should be shooting for? Or shouldn't it be more like our Baptist church bus driver would not swallow a live goldfish for every person who made it to Sunday school? Because that seems to me like it would be actually something worth pursuing.
I would say that for this enticement to get kids to church, to find the spiritual dimension in their lives so missing, so lacking, so destructive in America that has been lost completely, and why children are struggling and complete and utter confusion and brokenness and nihilism and the self-destruction, which could, in fact, crumble the entire infrastructure of the freedom and liberties of America. The things I talk about all the time, son, that would be worth a goldfish swallow, because you are trying to bring the next generation into hope, into power, into courage, into worship. I would say if there was someone who would have some hesitancy with enjoying that experience, I would say the goldfish, more than likely saying, is there any way you could find something else than to swallow me whole? Because all I did was be a goldfish. I didn't sign up to become a sideshow attraction.
Like, what exactly... Why a goldfish? Of all... Maybe they meant like those goldfish crackle things?
No, they're real. Goldfish swallowing was...
You mean like the actual goldfish?
Yeah, yes. But son, you have to understand something. In the 20s, that was the rage. Goldfish swallowing was a big trend in the 20s, the 1920s. What happened was they outlawed liquor. Everybody went crazy, and they started swallowing goldfish. And you would do that if you were drunk and you were jonesing and you didn't have any bathtub gin. You would grab the nearest, closest thing that you think might give you a hit, a high, and they chose goldfish. And why?
Okay, I'm just going to say this right now. I know at least half of what you said is complete nonsense, but I cannot tell which half.
Well, listen, what would you think would be worse? The goldfish going in or coming out?
Now, listen, if putting the goldfish in your mouth didn't traumatize that goldfish, oh boy.
God almighty. This guy's like, he goes in there going, I wonder if I can survive. I wonder if I can get through the stomach acids, go into this, what is it, some kind of tube, some kind of rubber tube, but I'm getting through this colon. Maybe I'm going to do it. Perhaps I'm going to get. Oh, no. Lord help me. Yeah, even if he was on his way out, it'd be a big disappointment.
It's times like that I'm glad goldfish only have a 3-second memory.
Oh my, yes, I bet they do. You know, speaking of 3-second memories, I just told the people that I was at Tucson. I was in Tucson, Arizona. I was at an amazing church called a Live Church. It's a warrior church with a warrior pastor, and they are the type of people that want to teach God's word, God's truth, standing strong, being a good citizen, being a constitutionalist, believing in America as a great nation, always trying to make it as good as it can be, fixing what can be fixed, but always hanging on to the foundations. I was there, and you know what? I tell you guys I'm on the road. I tell you guys I'm off doing stuff, and I travel a lot. I've been doing it for many years. Matter of fact, we have a great guest on tonight, a very well-known years ago Christian, one of the top Christian female singers in the world, Rebecca St. James, was on and taped, and she will be speaking with us soon tonight. So she knows what it is to tour. I know what it is to tour, and I tell you about it. And sometimes I'll take a Facebook Live video and send it out, and sometimes I want to do that and I forget. But I got a clip of some of the stuff I did, and I was just playing with the folks and whatever. And so I thought, you know, just for the heck of it, you're my fans, you're my people. This is Stine Has Issues. You are my loyal fans. So you always get the first taste. You always get the first stuff to look at. You always get something behind the scenes. Those of you who are part of the mighty 10,000, the growing of the militia of the mind, where at least 10,000 people will commit to actually serving their nation, trying to defend this nation, coming together as a group, finding ways that we can come together and fight for freedom and truth. Those of you, you're going to have access to much, much, much more of this as this grows, as I learn how to do it. I think we have the logo, though. As stupid as that sounds, we have a logo, which means that we'll have a shirt, which means we will be able to start getting shirts out to people. So we're going to do this thing. It's just, you got to give me a little time. I still travel because, believe it or not, I got to make a living. I know you're thinking I'm loaded with Stine Has Issues. White, how much money have I made from Stine Has Issues?
0.
Yes, but a big fat 0 with a big money sign right there. 0. How much you make?
Do I get paid for this?
Yeah.
Would you count that as being paid for
It's
this?
not much. It's a little stipend.
It's like maybe, let's see, how these things are like, what, 2 hours long-ish on average and once a week? Okay, actually,
it's below minimum wage. I understand, but nevertheless, it's better than, you know what I'm making?
It's kind of highway robbery, honestly.
I make below minimum numerals.
Yeah.
You can't go below 0, and I did.
Then you can. What? That doesn't make sense.
I don't know. Can you go below 0? Is there negative 0? Is that part of a numeric system in the mathematical world?
You're not serious, right?
I don't.
Not only do negative numbers exist, but there are literally just as many of them as there are positive numbers.
Okay. Are you positive?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm positive.
Well, listen, I've decided I'm going to show people a little tiny clip for a couple minutes of me at a live church in Tucson, Arizona, and this just happened yesterday or 2 days ago, and I'm here. I made it back. I rushed. I'm hot. I'm sweaty. I've got my sweat, sunburned, lots of issues coming, but I did it for you guys. I rushed back. I'm going to show you a little clip of me playing around with some folks in a live church in Tucson, Arizona. White, run that thing so my friends can see just how fun their little host is.
All right.
I'm grateful to be here. Yes, sirree. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is what I've been waiting for. This was what I had hoped that one God Almighty would open up the doors of humanity. And I said to him, Father, can I go to London, Paris, New York? He said, no. Tucson. So Tucson, your prayers have been answered. I am here. I'm excited. I love coming to Arizona. Before I get started, though, this is my first time here in this church. This is my first time in this community of people. Your pastor, Jeff, who has lifted you up throughout all this time, who is there to counsel you and walk you through your life and the difficulties therein, wherever you're struggling. This man has created this empire. And so I think it's crucial that we give a round of applause to your pastor, who is risking his entire ministry bringing me here tonight. So let him know you appreciate his courage to bring in crazy people. So that means you got a great guy, you got a special time. We're all here, we're all excited. I love Arizona. I'll tell you why I love Arizona, because this is the kind of place that reminds me of what made this nation great. You are hardcore, blue collar, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps Americans. I love it because you hunt, you fish, and you don't apologize for it. That's why I love coming here, baby. This is America. Sick up to here with the political correct. Don't shoot the animals. They might get their feelings hurt. This is Arizona. You don't even pretend to be animal rights activists. You people see the bunny, shoot it, eat it, make a hat. Out of that Zucchini bunny. Yep, that sure was a bunny. You got a snake? Nope, that's a boot right there. Put it on. That's America. Shoot it, eat it. You got a head left over, hang it on your wall. Why? Because you had to be self-sufficient. You had to be able to take care of yourself if you're going to be in America, because nobody's going to do it for you. See, they didn't want the government to do it for you. You were going to be the government. That's why they call it We the People. So that's what makes this so special. And so I got to drive around your town. I got to see Tucson. And I don't know if you know this. There are towns in this nation where you can go outside during the day in July and survive. I don't know if you know that there are places you can go in July in the United States that has water. What is wrong with you? This kid's scared to death. His dad's like, look straight ahead. He won't talk to me. What's he doing to young Philip? Let him have him. I want to be here because it reminds me of those people that stood up to tyranny, stood up to the difficulties, and came through creating the greatest nation in human history. I love that about you guys. And here's the thing. You can't do that if you don't understand the foundations of who you are as a community, because you guys stand up for traditions, the traditions that made us great. For one, you go to church. You're church people. That's crucial. Every founding father said this republic cannot stand if we are not a religious people. They literally said, that's talking about all the deists that didn't actually believe that God intervened in our life, all believed in prayer, believed that we needed God, we needed morality, or we can't survive because we are the government. That's really what they said. I don't know what to tell you. I've read a book or two. So I speak about real history, not false history, and certainly not manipulated history to degrade the greatest nation of all time. Perfect? Of course not. But how do you know if a nation's great or not? Do people want in? Or do they want out? And I haven't heard about people digging holes, sneaking into North Korea. Anybody heard about that? No. Nobody wants in there. They want to hear. Why would more people still want to come to this nation than any on earth? Maybe because it's better than the other nations. That's okay to say that. Perfect? No. But that's why we're here. And you guys remember that. And you got to hang on. You're churchgoers. That means maybe you're a Christian. I don't know. You come to a Christian church. Doesn't make you a Christian. But you're here. And that's beautiful. And you go to church. And here's what I love about Arizona. Not only you go to church, when you go, you're packing. So that right there, that has got to make your altar calls a lot more effective, doesn't it? Would you like to accept Jesus as your Savior? I don't know. I would. I'd like to do that. Should have done that last week. What was I thinking? You know, it's not that hard. It's Tucson. You got to do what you can. You got to do what you must endure. It was hot. It was my wife loves the desert. Loves the desert. Wyatt, your mom is my wife. I should have told you that a long time ago. Because,
No.
well, I knew you were thought something was odd. I kept taking this woman into my bedroom, and that's odd. That can make somebody uncomfortable because for some reason children think that their parents are celibate. I don't know why they think that, but they do. But that's your mom, and she loves the desert, loves it, and I don't. I don't. She thinks it's beautiful, and it kind of is. Now, over the summer, you and I, and your sister, and your nephews, and your brother-in-law, and your mom, we went to Joshua Tree outside of Palm Springs in California. Did you enjoy that?
Kind of, yeah. It's really, really nice if you love looking at cactus.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Now, I'm wondering, are cactus beautiful? Now, they have this, because any plant that is adorned in hypodermic needles is an odd choice to me, if as a designer of plants.
I mean, is there any weird within the plants that eat things?
Yeah, but those are interesting.
And you're trying to tell me that a dude walking in, like, you know, covered in thorns head to toe what made me say a little bit interesting? Like, how did he do that? Why did he do that?
What about Pinface? What was that guy in that one Hellraiser?
Oh, yeah, Pinhead.
Pinhead. So we've seen that, and it is compelling. And yes, if a man was walking through the desert stuck in pins, I would stare at him. I would find that fascinating.
Look, you call them thorns, I call them nature's sewing needles.
Well, listen, but here's the deal, son. Don't you think that's just an odd... I mean, I guess they're thorns. I guess if I see thorns on a rose, they're prickly, they hurt, but the rose is beautiful, but they're thorns and they're down there. But the thorns aren't the feature of the vegetable or of the plant.
Roses are not a vegetable.
Yeah.
Let us get that clear right away.
So I shouldn't have eaten them.
Go throw up, come on, before anything bad happens.
Well, listen, I'm not throwing up them needles. I'll say this, though.
You eat the needles?
Well, I want to be organic. If I'm going all in. And I've always been that way, and you know that.
Look, I know you want to live organically, but that doesn't mean you have to die organically.
That's true. Doesn't everybody die organically? Doesn't everybody die of their heart stopping?
No, not really.
Everybody dies by their heart stopping. Everybody.
Every single person who was killed by a guillotine would beg to differ.
But the heart stopping is when they died.
But technically, note that the head has the brain, and
the brain doesn't keep you alive. The heart does. It pumps the blood.
So you're telling me that if the brain turns out, the person lives? Actually, that would explain most people I've met.
Well, have you watched this latest administration in D.C., son? No, the heart. Now they will call you brain dead, and they'll say you're not. They'll say you're a vegetable, and they'll pull the plug because you're not cognizant of anything. They feel like you're not valuable, worthy of life if you're not aware of life. But you're still living, is what I'm saying. You're still living until the heart stops. So in theory, everybody dies of a heart attack. Everybody. If you've blown up in a plane, it's that heart that disintegrated that ended it all.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong on that, but like at this point, I'm just curious to see how much further you're going to take this. So keep going. Explain how every single injury is just a heart attack in disguise.
Isn't it though? The heart.
No, it in fact is not. If you get like impaled through the head with a railroad spike, I guarantee you it ain't your heart breaking for that one.
You die from blood loss from your heart pumping the blood out. Just your brain dying doesn't kill you.
Yes it does, because your brain's the one that tells your heart to work.
So your brain talks?
Well, if you consider nervous system impulses and stuff to be talking, then yeah, I guess, but... I don't. Nobody does, because that's weird.
He should use words. He's stored every word I've ever used. He's stored. You'd think he should go ahead and use
what
words.
Makes you think your brain's a he?
Because he's a stud. Wait, have you heard the things that I have said over these past couple of years?
Yeah,
The depth, the insight. My brain is a man. He's strong. He's powerful. He's unrelenting. He's unapologetic.
He is about 5 pounds of pure fat. So yeah, Studley.
Well, let's talk to you about Studley. You work at Lowe's part-time.
Yes.
Now, you do that because you're a good man. You're not trying to live off your father's dole. You're not trying to live off the government dole. You're not trying to get free anything. You're not trying to get free student loan, blah, blah, blah. You believe that if you took a loan, you should pay it back. That's a man of integrity. You are completing your obligation, and I appreciate that about you.
Would you say I'm lone in that assessment?
Well,
I mean, in this day and age, a lot of people think that they can just skirt by from daddy old government helping them out.
All right. But you're kind of lonely when it
Yes,
comes to
yes.
that, in that you don't believe in that. And I wouldn't allow you to believe in that, son. I expect you to complete your commitment, and your word is your bond. But you work at Lowe's, and because you're still going to school online, you're still working this brilliant podcast, which started out so horrifically. I didn't complain. I didn't dock you your pay. I should have. I get paid less than nothing.
I didn't
literally
get pay back then.
I know, but here's what I wanted to say. You were at Lowe's, and you work hard, but yet I'm always hearing problems happening there, things falling apart. And it made me think, every time I've ever heard people that worked for major companies, if you ever listen to them talk at the lunch break, and I've heard people on planes, I'm always on planes, so people are usually going for business. I'm telling you, son, virtually all they do is complain about how bad the company is run, how bad the boss is. That's all they do. Now, of course, they're presuming, A, if they were running the company, they'd do it brilliantly, or B, I'm sure everybody talks wonderful of me because I'm a go-getter. I'm Johnny on the spot. Boy, I'm the best thing that ever happened to that company. But all these other people, that manager they hired, now, I'm not saying there's not some terrible people or some incompetence, but they always complain. And it's like, hey, be grateful you got a job, you got money in your pocket, you got a way to make food. And we have joked about Lowe's for quite some time, but they're a hardware store. We need it. It brings things. But over the years, you've talked about things that they've done. It sounds so ludicrous. The money they lose based on the policies, it doesn't make sense to me. If the employees know this is happening and they would say to folks, boy, we should fix this, and they don't, why do companies do that? I mean, some of you watching right now, you work for some company, and you're probably thinking, yes, they're terrible, they're always doing, why don't they fix it? I mean, have you had any experiences with Lowe's lately that makes you feel like perhaps they're coming on the other side of it?
I have some experiences recently that give me the opposite feeling.
So once again, you're saying that once again, they are, what would you say, incompetent, inefficient?
Okay, let me give you the iPad back so that you can watch the screen, because I have a picture of what I'm about to talk about, and I want you to see it firsthand.
Well,
so just real quick.
This is the Brad Stine Has Issues first. Wyatt covertly grabbed a shot at Lowe's. Seriously. All right, son. Let's see what you got here, my son.
Okay. So let me set the stage for you on this one.
All right.
So I was just clocking in, just got in there.
All right.
And the only other person here is my boss, the guy who runs the whole hardware area.
You're right.
And he motioned for me to come over to one of the bays we have.
Okay.
Now, that night, the night crew who comes in after we all leave, they added some new doorknobs to our lineup. And when you do that...
You mean like when you go to buy doorknobs and they set them up so people can see what type options?
Well, I'm talking about the ones that you actually can buy.
Okay.
Like there. So when you do that, what you have to include is, the price tag.
Makes sense.
Normally we have stickers that we print out with the information. That is unfortunately not what Night Crew decided to do. So, real quick, I loaded the picture up. This is what the geniuses at Night Crew did. Instead of printing a label, it should come up in about a second or so.
I see it.
Yeah.
So they took a magic marker and put it on the metal beam of the rack?
Yes. Not the item number. We need to look at the product. Just the price tag. We are paying these people to do this.
So they're idiots.
And the best part is,
Yeah.
that's not magic marker. That's permanent Sharpie. We can't get rid of it. We literally have to spray paint over the beam to hide it.
Oh my gosh. Night Crew sounds like a sitcom.
It should be.
Because they do the stupidest crap.
I'm not sure if it's a good sitcom, but it's a fantastic comedy of errors.
Amen. Well, listen, I appreciate that. That's funny. Again, I don't know how companies stay in business, especially if they are shown that there's problems. I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm just saying that I'm still out there. I'm still going throughout the nation. I'm still going to churches that are bringing me in. I'm so excited because churches, there's so many churches out there that are bringing me in saying, we are standing for truth in America. We aren't afraid of the gospel of Christ. We're speaking it out. Don't care who it offends. If it's biblical, we're going to stand for it. It's our only chance, son. If we don't have God, we're dead, because God is the moral standard that kept this country alive. Now, for those of you who are tuning in, you didn't know what the militia of the mind is. I decided, what if I congregated all the people I know, and I know a lot, and we kind of just had this militia where we were able to access each other's insights, wisdom, thoughts, concepts, their particular websites perhaps. And so what I'm going to do is as you subscribe to the Militia of the Mind, and it is more than just subscribing to my website or my podcast, because you can watch the podcast for free. You don't have to pay for it. But what I wanted to do was to make it so that it was possible, by having some income, to do more and more and more video stuff, as well as some live things that I could perhaps do it at places that don't have the money to do it. And the only way I can affect the nation is to be able to have the ability to do so with financing. I will do the work. I write the stuff. I take the trips. I take the heat. I do all that. I just need backing like everybody that exists, needs some dough. So the Militia of the Mind will allow you guys, and this will happen as I figure out how to do it, that you can sign up and say, hey, I want to go watch this. I noticed you're going to have a Zoom meeting, and I can jump in, and you and Eric Metaxas are going to be talking live, and you can ask a question, or Mike Fisher, NHL hockey player, or John Rich, or whoever, jumps on and says, they're conservatives, they're Christians, they're patriots. They're good people. They really care about what's happening in this nation. They want to come on and help us. But you're also going to be able to have access to people like Rick Green, the Patriot Academy, and all of their curriculum on the Constitution, on the Founding Fathers, on our heritage, on what is truly America. How do we fight? How do we defend ourselves? What are the issues coming up? How do I get involved in a school board meeting so I can go out and make sure if you got pornography here, we're going to have you arrested as pedophiles. I mean, we have to do serious damage because hell is here, and it is relentless, baby. It is just shoving it all down our throats, and we have to fight back. So that's what it means. The first 10,000 people that will ever sign up to do this, take a while, but they'll be known as the Mighty 10,000. These were 10 people that just all over and you can join from outside the U.S., but it's kind of for us, but you might get some value out of it too. But you're basically just saying, for $3 a month, I want to join this group that just, we're lifting each other up, we're fighting for each other, praying for each other, believing it for each other. We're not crazy. The country's going to hell. It's dying. We want to try to revive it if we can. And we need to be able to socialize and be able to speak and to communicate and to do it together. So that's what this was all about. The Militia of the Mind and the Mighty 10,000 are simply the first 10,000 people to give me $3 a month. And if we get up to shortly, I don't even know what, a few hundred or at least 1,000, then that's going to allow me to really up the game, because then Wyatt's going to be able to come on full time. Now, yes, we won't have any more Lowe's stories, and you're going to have to deal with that, folks. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you won't get another shot of people taking a permanent marker and writing the cost on the beam next to the handles, because
actually, something else I forgot to mention. They actually did have a sticker for that barcode. 3 inches away from it.
I see.
Barely outside of the camera view, but yeah, they had one already. They just...
Okay. Well, anyway.
You know, maybe missing Lowe stories isn't all bad.
No, it's hysterical, though. It's wonderful. It's sad, but it's indicative of what's happening to America. Folks, I brought on Rob McCoy 2 weeks ago, Warrior Pastor. And then last week, Wyatt, who did we have last week? It was, I just blanked. Wyatt.
Was it the comedian, or was it...
Yes, Jim Brewer.
Yeah, Jim Brewer.
Jim Brewer. And so I'm able to get an eclectic group of people for you guys. I mean, for this little tiny podcast, and let's face it, it is right now. It's growing. But I'm getting some pretty significant folks on. And because I am a Christian, though, I do bring on Christian guests as well. I want to bring on atheists, too, by the way. I want to bring on other folks, too, because they will make for a more interesting conversation. But sometimes you need just to be lifted up. It's July. I thought I was going to stick a little bit more political, folks, and probably next week I will do that. But I also want you to be able to relax and sometimes just enjoy the conversation and have a fun time and not have to have the weight of the world upon you. So if you are one of the mighty 10,000, soon and very soon, we're going to be able to contact you and tell you how to go about getting a shirt. We're also going to be able to just slowly but surely have access to so many more things that you'll be able to look at and actually up your subscription. $3 a month is get you through it, but I think we're going to have a couple different categories, like maybe 10 or whatever, but that will allow you to have access to all my DVDs that you can download. It's going to have access to extra Stine Has Issues interview information you've not seen that you'll have access. You'll have all the free, extra stuff that will make it worth it, but it's going to help us fight this great battle. If you're interested in joining, just go to bradstine.com and just say Mighty 10,000, and all that asks is for your name, your email. It's a link so you can put in the dough. It's over. It's easy. And then we keep track of it because we'll know the number that you're going to get for on your sleeve of your Militia of the Mind t-shirt. It'll say Mighty 10,000 here, and it'll have your number. So that's how we're going to roll. That's where we're going. If you're interested, please sign up. Join us in the battle, in the fight. I've got a lot more people and things that I want to do, and I'm excited about it. More places I'm going to go. I want you to come see me. I'm going to be this weekend. I'm going to be in South Bend, Indiana, Friday at the Morris Civic Auditorium, performing with John Branyan and Michael Jr. So we're going to be, if you're in South Bend area, come on out, catch the show. I'm going to be at some other churches there. Go to my website, bradstine.com, and go to tours. There's 2 other churches in Indiana I'm going to be performing for, so come watch it if you want to see it live. If you're a church, or you know a church or a conservative group or a fundraising group that wants to bring me in, just contact me. It's not hard. I'm available to everybody because I just want to get the message out. I want to fight the good fight, and I want to die as a man trying to restore freedom and liberty to this nation, and to tell the truth that God Almighty was on earth once. His name was Jesus. That's what I do. I'm going to bring on this guest because I think you're going to really have fun with her. She's interesting, she's smart, and she was really at one point maybe the top Christian artist for a while there was. I did a movie with her years ago called Sarah's Choice. It was about a woman that gets pregnant and has to decide if she's going to get an abortion or not. And I was in that movie, and you should look it up. I think it's on PureFlix streaming is the only place you can get it. I don't know if it's on Amazon or any of that stuff. But if you happen to get that, I'm in that movie with her. But she's a wonderful woman. I'm hoping to have her brother, Joel Smallbone, on soon, too. He's the lead singer of For King and Country. He's a friend of mine as well. But this is what we're going to do, folks. We're going to fight the good fight, and we're going to have some really interesting conversations along the way. But I need you. You're the ones that are doing it. You're the ones that made this happen. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with very talented, very smart, very sweet, and very noble woman known as Rebecca St. James. Enjoy this conversation, folks. I think you will. So it's not often that I get a chance to bring on a guest that not only has their own recognition and their own talent and their own brand, if you want to be crude about the human performing artist's experience and what has become a commodity, but it kind of has. But that person also happens to be a friend, because from all the people, especially in the Christian world that I've tried to be friends with, they normally don't like it, and they abandon me immediately. But for those who do have the courage to take up their cross and realize that being friends of mine is going to cost them, once in a while they show up, and I'm grateful for them. But the particular person that we're going to talk to today is somebody I've known for many, many years. We met in an interesting circumstance, which we'll save when I bring her here. But she's somebody that you will know if you are in the faith-based world. And if you're not in the faith-based world, you better jump in quick, because the world is coming to an end. Just letting you know. Just throwing it out, just so you have an opportunity to know that the comedian tried to save your soul. But we are going to talk to somebody who you probably have heard sing beautifully and has brought a beautiful amount of ministry and inspiration to millions of people throughout the world, in spite of the fact that she's from Australia. So please welcome my special guest, my good friend, who I call Beckaroo, Rebecca St. James.
Wow.
How are you, kiddo?
I'm so good.
Good to have you.
That is probably one of the more unique intros I've ever had.
Ah.
Now decades of ministry.
And I'm sure you've had many. I'm sure you've had many. So, well, I appreciate you coming on and taking time. I got to be on your podcast, and it was a lot of fun. I think what I would say first is that I appreciate your spirit.
Thank you.
Because one thing that is so important in this earth right now is authenticity. There's people who are real, and most importantly, don't take themselves too seriously.
Well, I could be that sometimes.
Well,
let's be honest. Let's be authentic.
Yeah, no, please do. But
yeah.
I think that there is a really difficult challenge, especially for Christians who happen to be in the performance arts, to have to negotiate navigating their persona, which is a commodity that some people are buying. It's also your income source. And in some odd way, and you know what I mean when I say this, you're selling spirituality. You're selling this idea of your faith. Well, you're not doing it, you know what I'm saying. I don't mean it's inauthentic or it's a scam.
Right.
But in a way, our faith becomes the thing that initially draws people to us. So I find that can be a difficult challenge, because you kind of feel like you are playing a character, and you're not. You're a Christian who happens to do this thing, and you're grateful that you can be of service to people. But now there's an expectation upon you that feels unfair. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Tell me what that looks like to you and the world you came from.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you just speaking up right off the bat about authenticity, because it is something that I value greatly, and being vulnerable. And I've kind of always from the stage just kind of shared parts of my story vulnerably. And we were talking off air about how, coming from Australia, maybe that had something to do with it. Aussies are just pretty straight up. Like, we just kind of say it how it is. And in some ways we really bristle at inauthenticity, or people.
Did you know I worked a
big.
Season in Australia? Did I ever tell you that?
No.
I worked a whole month in Melbourne years ago. Yeah, and they called it a season, is the way they framed when you were there for. Comedy show was and I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but I thought I didn't know if you ever knew that.
No, that's
so awesome. I got to spend a month in Melbourne, and it was like a dinner theater type thing.
Wow.
So
how fun is that?
And it was very fun. But
Did the
I was
family get to go?
No, I had just got married
Okay.
very recently, and then I was there for a month,
Wow.
And we'll talk about that in a second because I didn't
Yeah.
know it ruined your train of thought.
No.
But because you brought up Australia, I just wanted
Yeah.
you to know that I've actually been in your wonderful country. And
Yeah.
I don't know where you were from exactly, not Melbourne.
Sydney.
Sydney.
Sydney and then Brisbane.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, so I've always valued that. And I think, you know, I probably 10, 15 years into singing, you know, and kind of being upheld for, like, what you're talking about, for Christian life in music and, you know, book writing and all these different things. It's almost like there was this perception of me and what I was. And it was that, but then there's this part of me too that's struggling with burnout and lonely on the road and wanting to be married, and that's not yet, and, like, you know, struggling with parts of my faith. And so then it's this wrestle of, like, well, how much is appropriate to share of that from the stage, that I'm kind of in it and I'm working through it as a Christian,
Right.
as someone who's wanting to honor God, but not dumping on the crowd, still wanting to be there to encourage them. So it's just this wrestling of where is these appropriate places to, you know, really, like, just let my heart out and kind of share all these things. And thankfully I had that, Brad. Thankfully I had a best friend who just tracked with me that whole time. I had a mentor. I had family members who were traveling with me, and I could share these deepest, sometimes hurting places in my heart, while also in small parts trying to share from the stage that I'm in it too, and I'm in process and God's working on me.
And how badly do people need to see the people that they've placed into a particular position that you never asked to be in?
Right.
We don't ask to be considered superior in our spiritual walk, and which is what they see. It's just like a pastor.
Right. Yeah.
You figure what, you know, this guy, if I can reach his plateau of spirituality, then I'm getting somewhere. And these poor guys have nowhere to go. They can't say I'm struggling with pornography. They can't say I'm struggling with burnout. I can't say I'm having whatever their thing is, because it can cost them their ministry. So I got nowhere to say help.
Right.
And
well, I mean,
yet,
hopefully they do. Hopefully they have accountability partners and a board and a wife like, that they can go to.
Maybe. I just know a lot of pastors over the years that feel like they never had that place. And
really
maybe that's changing.
I hope it's changing.
Well, you know, you said something interesting, and I didn't necessarily want to go to this, not necessarily not want to go, but I didn't expect to go here, but I don't care. I let it be very organic. So I had Nick Leonti on a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, you know her story.
Sweet girl.
Oh, very sweet girl.
Yeah.
And talented and kind.
Crazy
And
talented.
yes. Well, she told me her story. Now, her and I had met at Estes Park. You've probably been there many times.
Yep.
It's an amazing
Many.
place. Beautiful place, except you can't breathe. It's
It's
ridiculous.
in Colorado, up in the mountains, so the air is
It's
thin.
ridiculous.
Oxygen is thin.
I can't imagine for a vocalist trying to, when you're not adapted to it yet.
Yeah, I did a show at Red Rocks summer and a half ago. Yeah, year
And
a
is
half
it
ago.
similar 'cause you're in Denver?
A
Yeah.
friend was meant to play that night and
Couldn't breathe.
couldn't play. Like couldn't play. The sickness was so bad, altitude sickness. Literally
wow.
did sound check fine, and then by the show couldn't play. So it's pretty sad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, she had told me that we had met there years ago. I was working. They brought me in to perform. It was mainly for musicians.
Yeah.
But I was a kind of a novelty, the comedian guy and whatnot, and I was kind of building a name in the Christian world.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, we drove up together to Estes Park, and I suddenly it just flashed. I remember a young girl getting in the back seat. I happened to be in the front, and they were taking her up. She was by herself.
Oh no.
And
that right there is a sad truth.
that was the whole story.
Yeah.
She was 16 years old, alone on the road.
That's just wrong.
Well, she ends up getting pregnant and getting this and that. And I'm like going, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Where was her support system? And you know, I'm not here to lay blame to her family or whomever. It's irrelevant. But here's what is relevant, and this, I hope this doesn't seem inappropriate, but I think it's important. When I was on the road, there is obviously temptations of physical encounters, especially when I was in nightclubs back in the day, right?
yeah,
I mean,
I
clearly.
yeah.
And so I found it interesting to realize that a woman is in the same boat. But we don't think like that. Well, somehow you guys have this magic shield that you have none of these potential pitfalls, especially with Christians, where it costs you everything, even though it should be a virtuous way to live. But you made a big stance back very early about purity, about, you know, saving yourself from marriage, a beautiful, wonderful thing. But it can't be that easy. Am I right? I mean, I just feel like I never see women say, let me tell you, we struggle too. I don't know if, again, and please, I don't want it to be inappropriate, but I think it could be something important for people to understand that I think women have a very specific challenge, maybe. Okay, does that make sense, or maybe I'm off?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different kind of vulnerability. I think that we feel vulnerable maybe emotionally a little bit, like it can start on the emotional level. Like I connect with someone, and like we're really like connecting, and maybe if it, you know, and I don't know Nikki's specific situation, but if it starts as a friendship, it starts kind of like, oh, emotionally they're meeting that
somebody
need.
was kind of grooming her, unfortunately.
And
she didn't know. She's 16. She doesn't know what the
100%.
deal is.
100%. But I think then it can start with the emotional and the connection on that level, and then you feel like, oh well, they're really for me, and they've got my back, and they're trustworthy, and then I think it can start there and maybe lead to something, you know, more dangerous on the physical end. But I think for me, the road, I think it was just more like, probably, even though I had family with me, you know, I have a big family, you know, 7 kids in our family, and they were the crew for a while, and my brother's in for King Country, you know, they probably now talk about it in their interviews too, but we were on the road together. But I think because I wanted to be married, and I wanted this, you know, my prince to come, and I wanted children, and I wanted this life that I didn't have yet. I think that was the deep grief for me, or that was the like temptation.
So it
was more of a temptation to get kind of
to find
angry,
this
or just angry at God, like disappointed with Him. Like I'm being obedient
right.
to you. I'm being,
so where's my reward? I'm doing what you've asked. So where's the Prince Charming to sweep me up my feet and put me in a place that I long for?
Well, and I think I had to learn the hard way that like A plus B doesn't equal C. Like you can't barter with God. You can't just be like, okay, well, I'm doing all the things, God, so where's your part in it? It doesn't work like that. And there's a sense of entitlement that I think we can buy into when the desires of our heart are not coming into play. So I think I had to learn how to work through a lot of that and be honest about a lot of that. And I think I was in denial about a lot of that for a long time, because again, it wasn't in my world, it wasn't kind of acceptable for me to be upset with God about where my life was at. But there was some of that, and but again, I had these safe places to come to grips with that myself and then share it. So I'm thankful for that. And you know, God and I were fine, like through eventually, you know, I mean, there was some cost on it, I think, because of what I did, but I still loved Him the whole time. I still believed in what I was saying. I believed in what I was singing. There was just some hurt that was incurred, I think. That was probably more my thing.
Okay, well, you know, there's been this, I mean, and again, this is just, I think it's an interesting topic because it's being really real with the struggles of being a human and a believer.
Yeah.
Because you were part of the purity culture,
Yeah,
right? And this and that.
definitely.
Well, there's been a lot of pushback lately about somehow that was asking too much. I don't think so. I got to be honest.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying you don't think it was asking too much.
No.
I mean, I appreciate that. I very much do, because I think I've been saddened. Like, it's probably more a grief to me that purity culture has gotten bashed, like, so much in the last 5-10 years. And I was friends with some of the people that were leaders in that time, and I grieve that they're kind of taking that back now and going, well, I was so wrong. I don't think that they were so wrong. I think maybe some of the people in that time that were listening to this, like, save yourself for marriage, honor God in relationships, they were taking it to this extreme of, well, I can't date and I can't have anything to do with the opposite sex other than friendship until the one comes. And I think if you take anything too extreme or too legalistic, it can sabotage you in
But do you
some
think
ways.
that their pushback now is not so much that virginity prior to marriage isn't what they are pushing back? It's more about somehow putting impossible standards on people, or if you happen to fall, I don't understand what it is that they're renegotiating in their mind about what they thought they were doing then and what they think needs to be the new way to see purity. I don't. You would maybe know better than me because you knew those folks. What is it that they have a problem with?
Well, and I don't, I haven't gone down that trail too much of finding out those specifics, to be honest. But for me, when I hear this message of honor God in relationships, like don't make dating and this person that you're dating your idol, like honor, like be wise, have boundaries, like I hear that in like God calls me to a higher standard. He calls me to be above reproach in my actions.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make it this thing of the opposite sex is scary, and if I'm like dating, it's bad. Like I think if you if you take it to this extreme, I think these people are upset because I think they took it to the extreme and they had all these rules of like no, 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 and it ended up like limiting the people that they were meeting, and maybe they didn't get married, or maybe they married way later, and they're resenting how it turned out for them. But I think it was more taking this whole thing to the extreme. But for me, I was still dating. I was still getting to know the opposite sex. I was still trying to actively find this person. I was trying to be above reproach. Maybe a little legalism like leaked in a little bit there, but I still, there was still freedom to meet guys and to go, yeah, I'm into you and you're into me and we're going to go out and we're going to see where this goes. But it was just with the let's honor God about how we do it.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for my story.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I found my prince and that I have
and you
kids,
waited a
and
long
And I waited a long time. I was 33 when I got married.
Well, I just maybe they. I mean, again, I don't want to spend the most time on that, but I just think it's important because I think sexuality oftentimes is very much avoided in the Christian conversation for some reason, when it should be. It's a beautiful, sacred, holy thing given to us by God and should be embraced in a robust way in the proper context.
Yes,
just be a marriage and it's all yours. Enjoy yourself.
Yes.
Thank you, God. But maybe they felt like there was a manufactured boundaries that just made it almost unenjoyable to enjoy each other's opposite sex. But there is,
I think that was
a reality to that tension that male and female have together because we're designed for each other. So we can't not feel things once you like somebody. You can't.
Yeah,
That's just the way it works. Then the discipline comes in, and then you decide, what am I going to commit to? Well, I want to talk to you a bit about Australia.
Yeah.
Before we go even further into some of these other areas.
Mind you, I was 14 when I left, so
yeah,
I might not be like the best authority.
Well,
on that,
I mean, and I don't mean necessarily them as a culture, though.
Yeah.
You would certainly know that, and I'm sure you have many family members, I'm guessing, still there,
Yes,
and
I do.
have visited numerous occasions. But you have and I'm sure you've had this. You've gone. I don't like to ask questions. I feel like everybody else has said, but I think it is interesting because when I moved to Nashville 20 years ago, a little over 21, there weren't a lot of Christian comics. There was a couple, and I was kind of getting into a new subculture of what was going to be, I hoped, a new way to view what Christian comedy could look like. I came out of comedy clubs, not out of churches.
I know that.
So the couple of comics that I knew that were very talented, but they had a very much church vibe to them.
And a routine, like you've
Ken Davis, Shonda Pierce, Mark Lowry.
Yes.
It just had a very. I mean, he was with Gaithers. I mean, you're not going to be edgy.
Yes.
Okay.
True.
And that's all right.
Yeah.
That's like praise and worship music. Praise and worship music is to prepare your heart, hopefully, to worship God. But it's an odd music. If a secular person walked in, they go, I don't know what this is. Because there's no genre category that you can say, oh, it's like pop.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is now. I don't know. But that's one of the complaints now, right? Is what happened to the hymns where they had depth in one sentence.
Right.
Anyways, that's another topic. But
another podcast.
But I came here and I was really, first I was naive. I actually thought that Christian artists would kind of be comrades and friends, and we'd all kind of figure this out because we all knew what we believed, but we all knew we were artists. And artists don't think like other people. We're very right-brained. We're very creative. We're very off the beaten path. We're willing to push boundaries. We're willing to take risks.
Yeah,
it's the way we're designed. We know the parameters. God has given us those. But that doesn't mean they're going to be the typical Christian's boundaries. No, it's not. So, and I didn't find that to be the case so much. And, you know, maybe it was just naivete because, you know, I would meet certain people and they started putting me into festivals right away. Which is mainly musicians. So I'm meeting other musicians. To me, they're just people in the business that happen to be Christians. Well, they're busy. They got lives. They got a lot of people pulling on their time.
It's true.
And I'm thinking of them, we're just regular folks. Let's all get together. So I think I maybe misinterpreted some of that sort of aloofness as being taking it personally, as saying, look, I'm just trying to survive in this thing. So I repent of that. But one thing that was interesting, as I began to get part of the Nashville Christian culture and understand and meet the folks that were the movers and shakers, I kept seeing Australians. I went to the People's Church initially, and then
you know, we were there too.
I didn't know you were there. Maybe when in 2002 is when I think I moved.
We were there from '91 when we moved for a really long time.
Okay.
We probably were there, but you were on the road. We were on
well,
the road.
and I don't know that I knew you yet. But now it's what is this? And this was true. And this was curious. The odds, you know. So tell us just quickly about your family's so interesting story, and I have a lot of respect for your dad because you endured some difficulties trying to make this thing a reality. So can you give us a little backdrop about your family and then how you ended up in the United States in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I will dive in on that because it is an interesting story, and the movie's actually just been made about it. Our story of coming to America.
A movie is being made?
Yeah, it has been shot already.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, my husband is involved in
Very cool.
producing and helping with some of the directing and stuff. So, but my family, my brother plays my dad. My brother Joel in Vicky and Country plays my dad. It's called Unsung Hero, coming out later this year. But
I noticed I didn't get a role on that.
no, sorry about that.
I don't.
I wasn't casting, so that was probably the problem.
All right.
You know.
They always have an excuse when they tell me, I'm sorry, we're not right for this.
But I think Aussies coming over to the US or traveling around the world, I think there's a Australian tenacity or an adventure spirit that maybe comes from just having to beat the odds of surviving in Australia as convicts or as like free settlers. My family was free settlers, just so you know. That's my. I checked on that. Because people do tease you about Aussies being convicts. But I think there is this fighting spirit of they had to overcome, you know, a pretty harsh kind of place. We know when thinking American now, but when the early settlers first came, it was pretty challenging to survive. So there was this adventure spirit, this like tenacity.
So in a way similar to the U.S. As far as this very pioneer kind of,
very pioneer.
Here we go, I don't know if we're going to make it.
But Aussies travel. Like they travel Europe. You go to Europe and you run into them all the time. You meet a ton here. And I just think it's this big island that has a small amount of people, and we know that there's the rest of this world that can be explored. And so you see a lot over here. But we came because my dad got offered a job in Nashville when I was 14, 6 kids in the family.
He was offered a job. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was kind of he just had this game plan for maybe helping you.
No, we were meant to come for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
what was the job?
Management. Yeah, managing a Christian artist that he had toured in Australia. So he was a very successful Christian concert promoter that had toured a lot of bands in Australia.
Gotcha.
Like you name it.
Okay.
In the 80s. And
American bands.
American bands would bring them to Australia. And some Aussie bands too. So he'd done very well with that. He had a record label. He had just all the different things, promotions company. And then lost a lot of money on one tour and felt like, okay, well, America's kind of a new frontier. We'll go there for 2 years. We'll see how things go, and then we'll come back and, do more in Australia. But God had different plans for us. So I had started singing a little bit in Australia, some worship stuff, because the worship movement was happening there.
Yeah.
And we were seeing that. And so I did a worship
This is
album.
prior to Hillsong.
Well, Hillsong was
Or
kind of
synonymous.
starting to be somewhat successful. And Dad was involved in that beginnings of that too, because we went to that church for a little bit in Sydney. So anyway, we come to the U.S., first few years we're living by faith because Dad lost that management job pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it fell through, and so we prayed for all we needed and saw miracles happen. And I mean, and really the movie is a lot about that. It's a lot about my dad's struggle to kind of losing everything, struggling to find his way in the U.S., living by faith as a family, having all these kids, and seeing God show up. And so, but I'm thankful because that gave me a message. Like as a 16-year-old starting out full-time in music in Nashville and then traveling really the world, I was able to say, look, I've seen the power of God. And I've
So
seen
are you
prayer.
saying that you didn't necessarily have these aspirations to do this, but you
No.
kind of fell into it because you
Kinda.
kind of almost felt like, well, let's see if this is a way to help the family bring some revenue?
No, that wasn't really factoring in. Even though I knew that we were struggling, because Mom and Dad were honest with that, so that we could pray together as a family. But I didn't feel like, oh, I've got to save the day.
Right, right.
Because at 14, 15, 16, you're still going, Mom and Dad have got it.
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
got this.
and
This
they're
is
not
just a
gonna
little
always,
blip.
yeah.
This is a blip on the radar. Dad will
Yeah.
find his next thing in like the next month, and it'll be fine. But it was 2 years of really living by faith and not much happening. I mean, a little bit of, he did some management in that time, but it was a lot of living by faith. So, but in my, like, probably when I was 12, I remember praying, Lord, I want you to use my life. I want to be a world changer. I want to be on mission for you. And it was really soon after that music doors started opening in Australia and then in the U.S. So it was a pretty organic thing, but it also made sense that I was in the same family as my dad.
Yeah.
He was a very natural
Well, and
marketer,
of course,
promoter,
he would
manager.
he would know immediately how to handle it
Exactly.
at least. Yeah, it wasn't like, how do we do this?
He knew all the people.
Yeah.
He knew who to get a demo tape to, and he knew how to get them to, People's Church to come see me sing. And I, signed a forefront soon after one
Yeah.
of those.
And so when you, okay, so that tells me, it changes a little bit about how I was going to follow on that because getting more clarity. See, I thought maybe your dad, and I always saw it as his kind of dream, I just, from the way talking to you maybe or others, perhaps your brothers, like your dad was kind of the visionary, right, or whatever.
Definitely
And I
very
think he still
visionary.
is, whether,
He still
even though,
is
but
in
perhaps.
his 70s.
Yeah, and he's a
doing some
good
of the best
guy.
work
No,
of
he
his
is,
life,
and,
yeah.
and he's a nice guy, and he's always been very friendly to me. But
Because we go to church together. That's another thing
That's
people
true.
probably don't know.
That's true.
We see each other pretty regularly.
well, we do. But I don't want you guys following us.
No stalkers.
Because
I've had
trust me.
that and you've had that, I'm sure.
That's
Yeah.
right. But so when he came over with this other concept and kind of things fell apart, but then God rebuilt it into what it
Yes.
became.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was curious about was, and there's a reason for that. Part of what has set me apart as a comic, other than is when I outed myself as a Christian and a conservative. Now, people, of course, use both of those words and monikers as derogatory terms now.
Yeah.
At a time when it used to be that was just, oh, that's your point of view, that's cool, whatever. But to me, it was just, I grew up, I was born in Indiana, so it's a really small Midwestern state. My grandparents were farmers, right? So it was like as legit blue collar as you get, right? And so I grew up with this DNA of the United States, that it's a great country, and if you're willing to work hard, you can achieve, and these things that apparently, as I grow and learn and study and see, not all countries have that.
No.
They don't have, what I didn't understand, and began to become quite apparent, like when I'd go to Canada and perform, for example. Loved Canada, not so much now, But, I mean, they've become a totalitarian. I can't believe it's happened to these poor people, because I've always thought them as were very similar to the
Little
U.S.
brother to the U.S.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
so. And,
yeah.
and I wouldn't say that because that would sound demeaning,
Right.
though they would agree. Because that was the thing about Canada that I would notice. I would work in the comedy clubs there first, and then I did a seminary. They brought me in to perform, I think. Way out in the middle of nowhere in Canada was where I met Francis Chan. He happened to be speaking there.
Great, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So we became friends,
Yeah.
and he brought me to his house, and then to his church years ago
Right.
in L.A. But I noticed it felt like they loved their country. They were proud of their, but I almost felt like in some respects they were a little embarrassed to feel good about being a Canadian.
Okay.
Now maybe it was just the people I was with, whatever.
Right.
But and maybe it's only because I'm viewing it through the lens as an American, U.S. United States American. Obviously, Americans are big. Because we were raised to believe that this was a great nation.
Yeah.
Its founders were amazing, brilliant people. Not perfect.
No.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but I grew up, they taught us about slavery. They didn't just ignore that. So we all know about these things. Now, are there nuances to that? Or other elements, perhaps, that we're now reevaluating and want to talk? I don't care. Let's talk about as long as it's true. You can bring up anything you want. But I noticed that, so I guess what I'm getting at is Canadians didn't seem to have this innate sense
of
of
pride in their
patriotism in their
Right,
nation.
yeah.
And I didn't know any different. You're supposed to think that about, if I go to Canada, they'll feel like that, like I do about the U.S. If I go to Australia, they'll feel about that. And they don't. So what, and again, maybe this isn't quite going to come out the way I thought it might because of the re-evaluating how you guys ended up here. But before you guys moved here, let's just put it like this. What did you think about how did you see it? How did you think about it? I remember talking to somebody from, I don't remember, years and years ago from China. I don't know where they're from. But they thought everybody in America drove around in Cadillacs with horse steers of horns on the front of their car because all they had was television, and they were watching Dallas, I think was popular back then. So they only knew from television what Americans were like. We all rich in Cadillacs and whatnot. So was there a preconceived notion as to what it meant, what America was going to be like, and how you were going to fit in to that before you all got, like, did your dad have to brace you? Now, here's what we're going to get into. Or was this like an exciting adventure?
All right. Well, there's probably two layers to it. One, for me, I had a very positive idea of the U.S., and it was very simple and very kid-minded. And it was, this is the land of Disneyland.
Okay.
And we get to go to Disneyland when we move to the U.S.
From
We were
television,
very excited.
Disney or movies
Yeah,
or whatnot.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Somehow America and Disneyland kind of had fused. And we were very excited about the adventure of moving to the U.S. For a couple of years and getting to go to Disneyland. So, and all my friends at school were very jealous of me getting to come to the U.S. So there was this sense
So
of the
Australians
U.S.
thought
It's
the
great.
U.S. was something that
Yes,
you would want to go to.
But for grown-ups, and probably a perception that I had of maybe things that grown-ups had said about Americans, I think there was a little bit of a rich American misconception that Australians have that maybe a lot of Americans are loud and obnoxious and selfish. Because, now this is why. It's unfair and it's not true. I mean, there's probably part of that, but it's not overall true. And we met the most amazing people when we moved here. We kind of took, that was voided because of the amazing people that we met. But think of it this way. The only people really that can generally afford to come to Australia, it's very expensive, to cross to the other side of the world, are the rich, kind of probably more obnoxious, selfish.
Yeah.
Like they're
Well,
just
maybe
used to having
entitled
things-
folks, yeah.
Entitled.
Yeah.
Entitled is probably the, and I'm not meaning to offend anyone, but you were asking a very
No, I'm curious.
a very
you know.
straight up question, and again, that was probably not my perception. It was more because I was very excited, and but more something that I think adult Australians around me had shared because of who they encounter that actually make it to Australia.
So it wasn't necessarily like this was the land of opportunity or whatever,
No.
or there was something.
I'm just from my dad, yes.
Okay.
From my dad,
I was
for
just
sure.
curious, like,
From my
you know,
dad,
to
yes.
grow up in a different country and then become, I'm guessing, a citizen now. Well, certainly you're married, so that's, but didn't you already become citizen prior to that? Or I don't know. I don't care.
No,
I'm just,
I actually didn't become
Okay.
a citizen based on my marriage, although I became a citizen after I was married, but it wasn't based on that. It was based
But isn't
on
that
having a green
automatic?
card. No,
you get
you still have
married?
to apply for. You
Oh,
still have to
okay.
apply for it based on your marriage, but I didn't do that. I based it on the amount of years I'd lived in the U.S. and a green card and all of that.
Yeah.
So, but it's a lot to become a citizen here. Is a lot. It's a lot of paperwork. And
Well,
it's a lot of proving.
depends on how you go about it.
True,
They're
true.
always,
Well,
they're
for
always
me-
to skip
for
the
me,
line.
It was a lot. For me, it was a lot. A lot of paperwork, a lot of lawyers, a lot. Yeah.
Well, and that's part of what, you know, I discussed. You know, this is so important that people understand my perspective. And I've made this very clear. And I had to learn this because I did love my country. Yeah.
I love America.
yeah.
Just side note.
No, I think
Yeah.
who would leave their country of origin to another country because they liked it less? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it
So there's
doesn't.
something
Yes.
that caused
Yes.
them to say, I'm willing to relinquish my
Yeah.
heritage to a degree.
Right. By not being there.
You're always
Because I'm
Australian
I'm
to a degree,
citizenship.
but still,
Yeah.
you know, you've left your
Yes,
country of
I'm
origin
not there.
and said, I'm here now. I'm
Yeah.
one of these guys
Yeah,
now.
and I could move back.
Of course.
Yeah.
But, and we don't want you to.
Thank you.
We want you to stay right
Thank
here. But to be a conservative to me meant I want to conserve wisdom. I want to conserve the history of how the
Yeah.
world has worked so we can explore what political systems were pro-human and which were destructive. Every totalitarian system in human history, every one of them, had a very secular, atheistic, relativistic perspective for the most part. Now, there are theocracies in the Middle East that have a different religious heritage, clearly, and have a different book as to how they're allowed to treat folks that are different than them. My book, unfortunately, makes me love my enemies. That is
I was
ridiculous.
like, where is he going with this? Unfortunately,
Yeah,
but that was good. That was good.
Well, because
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
because Rebecca,
It goes against our human grain.
it goes against
Human
common
nature.
sense.
Human nature.
It goes against human nature. It's not natural
No.
to love someone who hates you and despises you and wants to do you ill.
Yeah.
Love your enemy. Pray for those that despitefully use you. You can't pray
Wow.
for somebody that despitefully uses you unless you're despitefully used. You can't love your enemy unless you have one. In other words, God is saying, you're going to have
Wow,
this.
that's good. That'll
This
that'll
comes-
preach.
This will come with the
Yeah.
package if it's authentic. Because I believe, and I've seen this happen, in when my comedy became a ministry, I did not expect that, didn't want that, and God says, I didn't ask you what you wanted. I give you what I demand. You said yes, and you wake up on the beach and whale vomit enough times, you go, maybe I should head to Nineveh. So that was my journey. But I make it very clear. I do not worship the United States of America. I worship Jesus Christ, the living God.
So good.
But I am grateful for what I consider the greatest nation in human history. I'm grateful, and I also believe I'm responsible to defend this territory
it's good.
because this is my Israelite moment. This is my,
Yeah.
place by which I was given. If we were in China right now, we'd be having a different conversation. We'd have to
not
negotiate
having
how
this
we're doing.
conversation.
If we were in North Korea, we'd be in a closet whispering to each other. That's our brothers and sisters there deal with this horror. In Uganda, where it's genocide on our people, and they're praying, God help us, while their brothers being butchered with machetes, and that's happening right now. Nobody cares because Christians are the single most persecuted religious group on earth and have been for the last 5 years, but we're the problem. See, that's how demonic this thing is. To say that the people who literally by data are being oppressed, persecuted, and put to death for faith more than any other religion are told that we're the persecutors. Now, that's like Holocaust denial.
Yeah.
That's like saying the Jews are the problem as they're being put off into the camps.
Yeah.
I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And I fight very seriously. And it's a problem, Rebecca, I have, because I have to navigate maybe my own pride or self-protection and righteous indignation. Because I think that's there too. I think that we are allowed to defend truth and righteousness and justice. So this might be harder for you to grasp since because you've lived here so long now. I'm guessing you feel pretty American.
I do, yeah.
But being from the outside, what do Americans not understand about themselves?
So I'd have to count myself in that. I mean,
But at least you have another DNA, because you didn't. I don't know how Australians are taught or not to perceive their country, as to how they should feel about, how they should engage it, how they should protect it, how they should defend it. I don't know. So is it different now that you've been both? And then again, tell me about Americans, and because how do you can't see yourself objectively.
Right.
You just can't. So
Right.
I'm curious
Yeah.
as to.
It's just my perspective.
Yeah.
on it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think growing up in Australia, going to school in Australia, like, there was a sense of, we're proud of our country. Like, there was...
So there was an encouragement. That,
definitely.
we're Aussies and good for us.
Australia's great.
Good.
Yeah, and
okay.
we're going to protect it, especially on the nature level. I feel like there was all these campaigns to, like, just protect our beaches and protect the water, because we're in drought a lot there. And, like, I mean, there was just a campaign to protect the great thing that we had. And I think that there, you know, was this patriotism that I did grow up with. I think here probably more so. I mean, it's funny now because I only became a citizen within the last 10 years. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And every time I sing the national anthem, I cry. Putting the hand over the heart, like there's something so moving about it.
Now why? Because you had to choose.
I didn't have to deny my. I'm dual, so I mean, I'm.
But what I
Aussie
mean
too,
is,
but I had to choose to be here.
but
you know what it is?
To
No, okay,
feel
I do know
like
what
that?
It is. No, I do know what it is. I think when you're a transplant and you come from somewhere else, there is initially this sense of I don't belong. I am an outsider. And I remember feeling that, trying to make friends here in Nashville. Everybody kind of had their own friends. I was different. They wanted to
I would think they'd think
hear
it's
me
cool
talk.
that you're from this
Oh, yeah,
other
they wanted to
country.
hear me talk, but they wanted...
I want to hear your accent.
Mind you, we were
Hear me
homeschooling
talk.
too. And
Yeah.
so, like, you know,
Oh,
at
okay.
youth group, that was where we kind of had, you know, beginning friendships, and everybody kind of had their own, like, you know, friends. So it was, I struggled a little bit for those first couple of years to kind of make true friendships, but I found them and I had them. But I think there was just this outsider feel. And so belonging, Brad, to this nation, being known that I am fully accepted as a part of this thing, it touches something in me. There's something of ownership of, like, I'm here and I'm received and I'm part of this. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that, but it touches me deeply.
But I wouldn't get the reciprocal treatment if I became a citizen of Australia, that I would go, oh. I mean, I don't... Is there something inherent in the DNA of an Australian to say, oh, you've chosen us, now you're going to... I mean, I'm just wondering if it's more of a personal gratefulness, or because of a person that's being grateful for something that they've been given, or if there was... I'm just trying to navigate, is there something in the DNA of this country that makes people say, I'll die to get here?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'll go through whatever it takes. I will abandon my country. This, I want there's something that has driven people here, and we know the backdrop. We know there were slaves. We know there was darkness. But we've also spent our entire existence trying to fix it.
Right. Yep.
We were the
Totally.
ones that stopped, I mean, Wilberforce, but we stopped the slave trade.
Yeah.
We were the ones that said this must
That's
end.
right.
We're the ones, because of our Judeo-Christian ethic, that says this is immoral.
Yes.
No other
Right.
nation's done that. There's slaves in Africa right now.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking for reparations.
Yeah.
So there's something that I guess I
Yeah.
was trying to see if I could tap
Yeah,
into
no,
what
I-
you sense
yeah.
that I wouldn't know, because I don't know. If you're born in a rich
No.
family, you don't know how not to be rich.
Right. But I think part of it maybe, because I honestly haven't thought about it. You're making me think about stuff.
That's what I do on bread signs.
That's what he does.
Make everybody confused.
No, it's thought provoking as well.
I hope.
And in a good way. But I think, and I've seen a lot of change in the U.S. in the now 30 some years that
Don't get me started.
that I've been here. It's over 30 years now that I've been in the U.S. So there's been a tremendous amount of change. But one of the significant things that happened when we first got here was our neighbors. We were just actually here in Brentwood.
Oh.
We moved straight to Brentwood. We were in a little community, in a little house. Our neighbors, without knowing anything about us, said in one of the first conversations, "Where do you go to church?"
Mm.
And we were so shocked by that, because that would never happen in Australia.
Not in
And
Australia, that's for
most
sure.
countries in the world, that probably would not happen.
Yeah.
I can't think of another country off the bat where someone would feel this is so accepted. And I mean,
Right.
yeah, mind you, we're in the heart of the South
Yeah.
at that time, early 90s.
Or assumed.
Where it's assumed
Yeah.
that you're going to be a Christian and
Yeah.
you're going to have a church and you're going to be thinking about that. But it was so lovely. It was so refreshing and so nice. And and it still is so nice to see a church on every corner in the city.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with a lot of pushback now against Christianity, and
Right.
somehow it's moved into threat status. And I agree with you. I think we do need to kindly, respectfully, lovingly protect what we have. No, I agree with
Yes.
you, because we've got something beautiful. And when I cry, when I sing the national anthem, it's probably all of that. It's probably all the above. I see what we have, and I'm thankful. When I sing "God Bless America," that's when, for me, patriotism and my faith connect, and it's very powerful. It's like, Lord bless this country, because we need you, and we need you more than ever now.
Well, and I wonder too, is those songs are so specifically oriented towards God. I mean, they're not messing around.
No.
They're saying, God
Yes.
Almighty, give us your favor, because we established this country to escape religious persecution of
Yeah.
the Pilgrims, and to have a place by which Jesus Christ is honored. That was the Mayflower Compact. This
Right.
wasn't some kind of
Right.
deistic, he's kind of out there, but he just
Right.
kind of wound up the clock and left us. This is who it's for.
Yeah.
You want to become part of this thing? It's going to be. Now, I believe that God honored that. I believe he said, okay, I'm going to show you what it looks like to bless your land. Get a load of this. And now it's going away. And I think that there's been a real obvious winnowing of the wheat and chaff in churches in America. I think he's really exposing those who have been using Christianity as a I don't know, a club of some kind, a place to where I participate here, now I'm going to go participate here, and those who are, listen, it's a narrow road.
It is. It is.
To be a true believer.
It is.
It's not supposed to be easy.
No.
If it's easy, you're probably not quite where you need to be, frankly. Maybe you should be nervous. Because Jesus said one of the definitions of proof you're a follower of Jesus Christ is you will be hated. What? We talked about the natural man doesn't want to love his enemy. So either Christianity is absurd, it just doesn't make any sense, and is asking that from a human that just simply is insurmountable, or it's supernatural. There is a provision within the Spirit of God that he has provided in us that allows us to do the impossible, so we can represent. It really can work. You can really see freaks on this earth and go, who are you? What do you have? I don't have it. I need it. But we know how much we aren't in the performance arts. where you're given a very specific position in the Christian community, I feel like what they think they see we are compared to how we know we are is night and day. I get embarrassed when people recognize it because I just think they don't. And then they'll write me things. Oh, your comedy brought me to Jesus. I go, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I'm grateful, but it seems impossible. How much respect and authority people will give to our lives. And sometimes I almost feel unworthy and embarrassed, like you don't, you didn't even deserve to get it through me because I'm not worthy of that thing. And I do not mean that with some false humility. I feel like I don't know how to do that. And don't put that on me because I can't do it. I can't keep this up. I'm not. The one thing about my Christianity, my conservatism as a comic, it's not a gimmick. It's what I actually believe. I just was, thank God, found a way by His grace and His gift, I guess, to deliver it in an interesting package that makes people want to be curious, which is all I'm here for. Tell God's story. But I do it in an unorthodox way. Well, I'm curious about moving forward in America. We're in a season unlike any perhaps we've ever been in. Now, we've been in some rough ones. The Revolutionary War that started this nation was a war of a bunch of civilians in colonies fighting the most powerful army in the world. And they won.
Amazing.
And then the Civil War, and they were split in half, and it was because we had two different ways of seeing this nation. And Lincoln said, I'm not going to separate the Union. We're going to stay together. Well, this is similar to me to the Civil War because we have two almost divided as to how we see this nation and what its foundation is.
And even within the church, we're
I
divided.
think absolutely.
We're divided.
And I have said recently, and people have resonated with us, and perhaps it's God's means of having me communicate this. One of the things that made America unique was it didn't matter who you are, where you came from, what language you spoke. If you came here to participate and melt, sort of a melting pot. We are not multicultural. We are e pluribus unum, out of many one. Yes, lots of ethnicities. Yes, lots of older countries. Absolutely. This country wouldn't be great if all the other countries hadn't come up, because they had a lot more to teach us, right? Thousands of years old. But you had to join us. You had to become this other thing. And once you became a citizen, you were an American. Now, I don't know that happens in France. I become a citizen. They don't say, oh, you're French. No, you're not. No, I'm not French. I'm from France. Oh, you're English. You're English. Oh, you're Spanish. You're Australia. Oh, you're a citizen. Yeah, you're Australia. They don't say those things. They say you're a citizen of these things. But here you're an American. It's like you joined the club, which is what I think you were saying. You felt like I belong. This tapestry of a family of all. We literally are everything that the left is trying to say they're trying to create here, eclectic sort of combining of different types of folks and finding an equal respect. We are that. But you can't be that if the house is divided. There has to be the same surname, right? You have to have the same lineage, the same foundation, the same understanding of your history, who you are, what you respect, what you're going to stand for. And I realize now that there's a difference between being a citizen of the United States of America and being an American. All Americans are citizens. But I no longer believe that all citizens are Americans, because to be an American, you have to respect what started this nation, or we can't survive. The house will divide. So what is your thinking or take on what you would think, and of course this is hugely deep and impossible to properly answer, but curious because you have a perspective, unique, an immigrant chosen to come. What will the world lose if there's no more America?
Wow. I mean, you can go down the route of like, America's a superpower, it's an influencer, it helps a lot of countries that are hurting in their time of need. Like, you can go down that route. But I would like to more harken back to the spiritual foundation, which is what you're alluding to over and over, which I love because it is so strong. And I'm now a homeschool mom, you know, our daughter is in 3rd grade, and we're going through American history, and I'm learning so much. But when you see the foundation that this country was built on and why there's the freedom that we've had and why there's the opportunity that we've had, it's because it is built on these Judeo-Christian values. So I would say if we lose what America has had and the presence it has had in the world, we lose some salt and light. Because really, America traditionally has been made up of a huge percent of Christians who are, though not perfectly, seeking to live out biblical values, and that's salt and light, and it's a preserving agent within the world. It's a preserving agent within the country, but it's a preserving agent within the world. So I think the world loses big time if we don't intentionally preserve what we have. And I think the way that we do that is by living as Jesus calls us to live biblically, live as salt and light, but live lovingly too. Like, let's go about being salt and light.
How do you do it when
respectful?
Yeah, I mean, how do we do loving the? I mean, where is that definition? Because I noticed that it's often
It often it's just don't say anything.
Well, it's manipulated.
Don't speak up because that's going to offend.
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
well, and that's
Yeah.
my big agenda is free speech, because and the first line of the First Amendment is Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, forbidding the free exercise thereof. That is the single most important right given to us by God. This founder said all our rights come from God and are protected, because it's not because we're trying to be a theocracy. We're not. It's the opposite. You can be whatever you want. It's your conscience right. It's your right of conscience to live as you choose. Again, the totalitarian regimes decide how you can think, how you can believe, how you can worship, whether you can worship, what you can say, what you can't say. You become a slave to a demonic appointed a group of folks who've decided that they will control you. And we're watching it now throughout the world. We have people that are megalomaniacs because they made billions of dollars making computers, now telling us what we can eat. You can't eat meat. And Bill Gates, we don't want you to have meat anymore. And of course he's involved in all the synthetic foods so he can make money. It's systemic narcissism. It will always go back to original sin. There will always be people who are so full of themselves. I will be God, and the rest of you will live under my authority. So when they try to use words like, I'm echoing what you talked about loving people and whatever, and I just wanted to bring it into a real existential moment, because it was something we just experienced with the corona cult. I call it a cult because clearly what took place was beyond recognition of freedom. But they would use Jesus. Jesus would have wore that mask. Jesus would have taken the vaccine. That one killed me. Jesus would have taken the vaccine.
You actually heard
that?
that?
Jesus would have taken the vaccine. Same guy that said,
didn't hear that.
Yeah. You're blind, but you can't walk. Oh, you're dead. Oh, we got a virus, Jesus. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. But as a mature Christ follower who has had to be extra sensitive and, unfortunately, responsible for the favor and the honor that people give you, because like I said, you didn't ask for it.
Right.
But you're responsible for it, because that's how people see you. How, moving forward, because this ain't going to end. There's going to be the next wave of how they're going to control industry. I don't just have Christians, believe it or not, atheists watch, Australians watch me, Irish watch me, but lots of UK. tell them, because I always try to go beyond just I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, aren't we great, aren't they not? No.
Right.
What is some proactive warrior tools? And Christians should be warriors. We are fighting the most evil enemy of all time, Satan, the father of lies. How do we love and still stand up boldly, unapologetically towards ideas that people are going to despise us and not lose that fragrance of Christian love that we're supposed to give? How do we do that? How do you do that?
I don't know. I mean, talking about vulnerability or being authentic, I think I'm still figuring that out. I think the best way that I know how to do it right now is to have the important conversations within the communities that we live in. Have these conversations in your family, even if it's awkward. And through COVID, honestly, we had some interesting conversations in the extended family. I mean, as probably all of us did.
Hateful
As all of us-
conversations.
well, I mean, we were trying.
Yeah.
I think all of us were trying
Yeah.
to be respectful and considerate, but there was varying opinions within my extended family. Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, and so it becomes very sensitive. But it doesn't mean we should shut up. It doesn't mean that we just silence ourselves and go, oh well, they disagree with me, and so asking that question, Jesus, Holy Spirit, what does love look like in this situation?
Yes.
Because biblically, we have this model of Jesus spoke up. Some hard truth
Yeah.
when it was needed. Now, yes, is he the Son of God? Yes. Does he have that authority? Yes. Is that a little bit different to what we carry? Yes. But he was giving us a model for sometimes love speaks truth that hurts.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Now, I think the main thing is that we're just led. I got goosebumps right there. I think the main thing is that we're led by the Holy Spirit, and that we are in accountability too. Like that we have people that are also led by the Holy Spirit that are speaking into our lives, and that we are under authority. That we are in church. That we're like having the Bible being taught to us. That we're seeking God each day. That we're trying to live biblically. All those things. So I mean, it's just living out our faith in all the different moments, but having the conversations, I think, is really important. But when it comes to like public profile and stuff, and like how much we say, Brad, I'm still figuring that out. I'm still figuring that out because.
Do you regret anything you've ever said?
No, I don't, and I think that is because I mean, we started this conversation with prayer, and I think there's been a grace on my life because of prayer. I think God has so far protected me and my platform to speak because of really seeking him in prayer over all the things that I do. And I, the reason I do that is because I feel inadequate for all of it. It's like what you're saying. It's like we didn't necessarily look for this or feel like we were qualified for this. We know we're not enough. But when we like beg him to move through us, he does, and he shows up, and we're grateful that we get to do that. So I'm figuring it out. I'm in process on the leadership part.
Yes.
On the speaking to the masses.
Well, and I think that's especially those of us again in this business, so to speak, we kind of fall into this authority that we're given that we didn't really sign up for. We kind of just wanted to be
It's
this
not like
thing,
we went to school for
and
this.
suddenly we were given
College for
this accolades and expectations that we can't live up to. We're getting close to closing it up, and I thank you so much for your time, and I'd talk to you forever, but I want to respect your time. But one of the things that I do want to kind of close up with, because it's important, is I try to help people, Christians, and again, it's not just a Christian podcast, but I do get a lot of folks that are believers watch. Most of them aren't going to be professional singers. They're not going to be professional comics. They're not going to be whatever. And one of the things that has been so challenging and difficult for me is artists don't think like an engineer. We don't think like a mechanic. We don't think like a teacher. All of these are incredibly crucial, important segments of society. but it's very analytical and very, and people like us have this different wiring that God gave us. It's beautiful, but it comes with a lot of baggage. All creative people suffered with often anxiety and self-disgust and depression. I don't know why.
We're sensitive types.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that. Maybe so. And we're trying to find this way of exposing ourselves in a way that we can control. But I've watched oftentimes over the years my material go out there, and of course my style, I'm sarcastic and I'm using irony and I'm using aggressive because it's a tool of comedy. It's a means of communication that is given a specific role.
Yes.
If I was the way I am on stage right now or out in the market, it'd be inappropriate because it's a caricature, it's a cartoon you've created to say hard things.
Oh yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
the, and
it's
the
a powerful
and the
tool.
comics are
Right.
crucial to a free society.
Yes.
We were the
Yes.
ones that were
Kind of
allowed.
say things that other people
We were
can't
supposed
say
to.
in some ways.
It was
Yeah.
it was a safety valve for culture. Somebody had to be able to let the steam out. Somebody had to be able to make fun of the king, not to get their head cut off. Somebody had to say the monarchy and the peasantry are actually in the same boat. Somebody had to say you guys are screwed up. Some of you had to say those of you who think that you can't be joked about need to be joked about twice
Yes,
as much.
yes.
Some of you had to say that those of you who think that it's insensitive because you said something that might make somebody feel bad. Yeah, that's what it's for.
Right. Right.
To make you grapple with the fact that maybe your problem is you think you control us because you don't want to hear things that don't fit your narrative. And that's control. That's your bigotry that you have given yourself a pass because you think it's virtuous. When in fact the only way you grow is from pain, not pleasure.
That is true.
So let me just kind of close with this. It's kind of not necessarily the most positive, but I think it's important because I think that I want people to know you for the real person, not the facade.
Perception.
Yeah. What is the most painful, hardest, heartbreaking things that Christians have done and said to you? What did you feel? How did you grapple with it? And what would you say to those who are on the journey trying to figure this out? And what it means to have some grace?
Wow. It's a really, really big question. I mean, the word that comes to mind immediately is used.
Really? Used? Explain that.
And again, I don't think anybody that was attached to that word in my life would have ever had any intention to do that, you know.
Maybe
it's the nature, and I mean, it's what you've already spoken to in this interview. Like
maybe you
in
shouldn't have
some
to
ways-
qualify it. Is what
but-
I'm going to say though.
but-
Why are we always doing that?
Oh, I know.
Why can't we just
make
say, you know
excuses.
what, that sucked,
Okay,
man?
okay, but you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a friend recently that just said, this was such a word to me. She said, in relationships, when people hurt us, we need to call it what it is, and it's sin. They have
Yeah.
sinned against us. It's sin, and we need to own that that's what that is, grieve that that's what it is.
Including
And-
husbands and wives.
Anybody, anybody in our life that hurts us, they're sinning against us. So, and like claim that's what it is. Now whether you're claiming that that's what that is to that person, or even have the opportunity to with that person, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you will, to repair and to move forward with that person. But for forgiveness, this friend and mentor was saying that that's what we need to claim it is. So yes, each one of these people that I would use that word with sinned against me.
So your greatest pain was being used in
For
what
other
capacity?
for other people's gain, not mine really.
Are you talking about in the
part-
industry?
Yeah,
Not so much
probably
personally
primarily.
as
Probably
a
primarily,
commodity
yes,
that they
yeah.
could make some
Yes.
money off of, and you were cast aside when they didn't need you anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I
Yeah.
want people to understand. I just don't. I'm taking advantage of the fact that this is my show
Yeah. Oh yeah.
to say, you guys out there think that you don't owe, that we're not humans,
Right.
that you can just say whatever you want because you paid a ticket to go see us. No, you don't get that right.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for it. I'm just trying to figure out too. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm sure you're happy when people weep at songs you've sung or inspired by it. But that doesn't give you the right to be hateful and
Right.
judgmental and decide that we didn't say it right or do it right or why didn't you say? It's just, God Almighty, they don't give you any grace. They
right.
just don't.
Right. And maybe that's what in some of these situations I was missing was this grace for me. For me, the person that was growing up very young, very kind of vulnerable because of my youth within this whole CCM thing. And you know, I've done a heck of a lot of counseling, like to kind of work through some of that wounding. And I'm thankful that my journey has been what it is because it has made me know my need for Jesus. It's given me the faith that I have because it's been tried by fire. It's been tried by pain because I agree with you. You don't learn anything in life outside of pain. But it's hurt. It's hurt. You know, and it's something that I even have to now, like in ministry now, kind of deal with some of the triggers of, well, ooh, that feels scary to say yes to that opportunity in ministry, or what will that cost me, or now what will that cost my family? Like is that a good yes for me? Is that a good yes for my kids? You know, we have three kids. Is that a good yes for my marriage? So there's a lot of layers. But on the other end of what you asked, like, so that's probably the biggest grief of my life, just feeling vulnerable, you know, within probably mostly music, like just vulnerable. Yeah. This phrase that I've heard recently come up quite a lot is, but God, you know. All of us have our own unique cross to bear, and for some of it, it's going to be much more directly antagonistic. People bullying, people saying hurtful things, family betraying you, like just over and over again, wounding. My story might be a little bit different. All of us have something in life that's going to bring a deep, deep wound, and it's what we do with it. It's how we pursue Jesus and his heart and his love for us within that. It's how we forgive. It's how we choose to move on and not let fear hold us back. I mean, it's how we respond to the cross that we bear in our life. And for every single one of us, it will be different. So I think that I'm still in that of going, Lord, how do I live in freedom with my hands open, trusting you, because you are my good Father and you're my creator that has beautiful and lovely plans for me. And how do I not let the enemy steal, kill, and destroy in my life? So I think all of us have the same responsibility, and to move forward and to love well, love him well, love others well. We're just dealt a different hand, but we're all in it. We're all in it together, and we're all struggling with very similar things.
Yeah, well, maybe this is kind of a cathartic place for me too, because I just feel like oftentimes people don't understand how difficult it can be to be in ministry.
Yeah.
And to not really feel that we don't consider ourselves in a better necessarily place. We might be in some areas, but I just feel like oftentimes they underestimate our vulnerability as a person trying to figure this
100%.
out, man.
Yeah.
Are you proud of your brothers?
I am. They're
So
doing
in
really
case you
well
don't know,
now.
you should. Of course, For King and Country is her brothers, and holy smoke. Oh, my
They're
goodness.
doing great work.
Oh, my goodness. So proud of those guys.
Yeah.
Not that they care about me, but when I saw them on The Tonight Show, Christians, and what amazing live show.
They do an extraordinary
I'm
life.
so proud because when I started out as comedy, I'm sorry we're going a little bit longer, but I hope.
Okay.
I remember saying to God, he said, I want you to go into the churches. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it right now. But I do remember saying this. I'll go where you send me. You want me in the churches instead of clubs. But I don't want to dumb it down. I literally said that. And he said, why do you think I trained you in nightclubs? I said, well, I don't want to dumb it down. I literally said that. And he said, why do you think I trained you in nightclubs? And he said, why do you think I trained you in nightclubs? I said, well, I don't want to dumb it down. I literally said that. And he said, why do you think I trained you in nightclubs? We used to leave the Sistine Chapel as our legacy. Not puppet shows. Not cheesy films.
That's good.
Not
Yeah.
low budget. And low budget doesn't mean just because you don't have the money doesn't mean you can't tell a great story.
Oh,
that
yeah.
you can't get
Some
proper
of the
lighting.
Best films have,
Yes,
have
of
actually been on a
course.
low budget. Yeah.
You know, and we met on a film set called Sarah's Choice. You should go see that. I'm guessing it's streaming on PureFlix. I would assume they
might
own
be on
it.
Netflix still.
Is it Netflix?
It was at one point. Yeah,
Okay,
maybe not.
but she was the star, and I was very familiar with you, and I was in the film as well. But I remember when I first met you, began to meet you, I think you were backstage in a green room or something, and I walked in, we were talking for a second, and it might have been in before Sarah's Choice. But your brothers were in there. Did they sing backup with you
They did.
earlier? Okay. So anyways, I didn't really all know you back then, but you should go check out Sarah's Choice. She has this wonderful job. It's a very interesting pro-life film, and I've done a lot of pro-life work over, as I know you have. But, you know, the arts are God's. And I just want Christians to not try to say, can we get as good as them? I want them to look at us and go, how do you do that?
Yeah.
That should be our legacy.
Yeah,
that
I
should be
agree.
what I mean. Is there anything you would want to tell anybody out there that might be on your heart? If not, we can wrap it now. But is there anything you might want to leave to the world, believe it or not, and all over the U.S. that watches this show, that you would want to leave them with? Encourage them, inspire them.
You know, a recent prayer of mine has just been, Lord, I want to see your smile. I want to walk in the light of your smile. And so I would encourage you just to ask God to show you his smile for you, like his receiving fatherly love for you. And I think if we can walk in that, how much it just changes how we live. I want to live in his smile and his adoring love eyes for me.
Yeah. And we do need him to be that personal, don't we? We really need him to be beyond that
do.
magical guy in the sky that we don't ever...
He's right here.
You got to
right
hold me,
here.
Lord. You got to put your arm around
right
me.
here.
Yes,
Yeah,
I need
love
that.
eyes.
And it's pretty amazing because he created everything by a word, and yet he says, I will take you as an individual and love you as though it was just you and me. That's difficult to grasp.
It is.
That's what makes our faith so unique. God bless you. Thank you so
friends.
much, Rebecca
Great
St. James.
conversation.
Great conversation. I appreciate what you guys are watching. I hope you like this. If you are Christ followers, I hope it gave you some inspiration, maybe a little back behind the scenes look at how difficult this thing is, and that, trust me, do not read us to get your inspiration. Read the Bible.
Yes.
Much more helpful,
Yes.
but we will try. And you know what? If you really have an issue with it, if you really do, that's your prerogative. Do me a favor. Pray for us. Lift us up. Give us some grace, because we could sure use it. But the single most important thing, if you're a Christ follower, is we are the last truth tellers on earth. We're it. We're the last ones. We have to speak truth at all times. If you're not a Christ follower, you might well consider it. It is not just a religion or philosophy. It is actually the truth. It is literally explains how the world got here, where it's going, and how you can join in on the greatest adventure of your life. That's why we're here. That's what I'm trying to do. Believe it or not, he had to be stuck with a comic, a singer from Australia. He had to scrape the barrel because all the profits are running out. But I appreciate what you guys watching me, coming in, showing what, support for what I'm trying to do, and being hopefully somebody that can give you some marching orders to move forward and defend your territory that you're responsible for, whether that's your backyard or your business. Remember, we cannot allow the religion of cultural Marxism to overtake us. It's evil, it's cancerous, and it needs to be destroyed. Political correctness is that thing. It is not Christian, and it is not holy. It's the worst of us. So let's get rid of it. Let's deal with what God can give to us to actually free ourselves and admit when we fail, but also to know that God forgives us, and let's do that for others. As I've always said, PC free is liberty. And I'm just a regular guy doing the best I can, but I have one mission, folks. I'm just putting the woke back to sleep. God bless you.